Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got the all-new Volkswagen Tiguan on review with us today, which is this very nice green colored car. I can't remember the name of the color, to be honest. I need to check the press guys about the color of the car, but this is absolutely beautiful. It's the nicest shade of green I've ever seen on a car. But I digress. For today's review, we're gonna go check out the exterior of the car, because the Tiguan does have a new exterior design. We'll check out the interior, which features its new large 15-inch touchscreen display, and then of course we're going to go take it for a drive, because now it has a nice 1.5 litre turbocharged mild hybrid drivetrain. But before we do all that, if you're a driver in Singapore, you're looking for a brand new insurance quote for your insurance renewal, the best price possible, and you're also looking to sell your car, or if you're thinking about selling your car for the best price possible, check out the link in the description box below. We have the ability to get you the best prices on those quotes. It's free to inquire, so check it out if you will. And with that, let's get on the review. Let's go. Alright, so jumping straight into the review, this is the exterior of the Volkswagen Tiguan, and first impressions is that it looks a lot more demure than previous generations of the Tiguan. So I think I'll be very honest, when I first saw this car during launch, I had the impression that it looks a little bit soft. But in person, out on the roads, now that I've seen it in this color with the 20-inch wheels, it actually looks pretty sporty in that sense. I mean, obviously not as rugged as previous generations of the Tiguan, but I think it does a really good job at bringing the car forward into the modern generation, because I think a lot of the styling when it comes to cars today have been cleaned up quite a lot. Cleaned up in the sense where they are sort of blanked out, you know, kind of like to tie in the design of the EVs as well. Like even a lot of the petrol cars that you see today are experiencing a more cleaned up, more minimalist design. So I think this is the same case with the Tiguan, but I think Volkswagen have done a very decent job at pulling this off. And I think it caters very well to the demographic as well, because people who buy Tiguans are very sensible people, in my opinion. They are not the most flashy cars, they're not the quickest, they're not the most comfortable, they're not the most expensive, but they get the job done, and they're pretty good all-rounders in almost every aspect of driving. So I think people who buy Tiguans have thought about all this, considered all the options, and have decided that this is the best car for the job. So very mature design, so to speak. But enough about that. This is the front fascia now. As I said, you know, a little bit cleaned up. You don't have a very obvious grille anymore, so to speak. And while it looks a bit more demure, a little bit more dressed up, so less rugged, but I think it does look more premium, which I think is a very key factor for owners in Singapore today, because they want their cars to look premium. Cars in Singapore are expensive enough as it is, so looking premium is a very, very important aspect of car ownership. Down the sides, you've got these 20-inch wheels as standard. These are very nice. I'm actually impressed with Volkswagen for creating a wheel design that I've actually never seen before. So for those of you who've been driving for long enough, you'll realize that aftermarket rim designs have been pretty stagnant, pretty standard. Nobody really makes anything new, and even if they try to make something new, usually it comes out a little bit weird. Somehow Volkswagen have managed to create a design that is kind of unique and kind of works for the car. It works perfectly for the car. Down the side, I think is where the Tiguan probably looks a little bit more impressive. It looks like a large car, very good stature, and it doesn't look too tall as well. It's got a very nice sleek feel to it. I think it's a very good looking car from the side, if I'm being very, very honest. Very good proportions as well. If you look at the slightly more compressed nose, a very nice wheel gap, not too large, and then this sleek silhouette. You know, it's not too round and bulbous like you get with a lot of other SUVs. And then of course down the rear end, you got a very handsome and neat rear end. Not the most outstanding in terms of design, like I mentioned. Like, I don't think this car is gonna turn heads, so to speak. But if you choose the right color, I think this car, pretty good looking actually. So well done Volkswagen on this. I think this is probably, I don't know, maybe one of the nicer looking cars from Volkswagen for some time. But enough about that. So at this juncture, let's jump into the cabin, the driver's seat, and check out the check out the interior of the Tiguan before we go into the rear of the car and then take the car for a drive. Let's go. Alright guys, welcome to the cabin of the Volkswagen Tiguan. This is the design of the newest generation of the Tiguan, and I think it's very noticeable what the biggest difference is, and that would be this 15-inch touchscreen here, which is the highlight of the new car. Do I think it's a little too big? Yes, kind of. In fact, it's a bit alarming, but I don't think consumers are going to complain that they've got more bang for buck in terms of the size of their infotainment unit. What is really cool about this screen, aside from being large, is that I think the previous generation of infotainment units, like from a couple of years ago, I think those were probably, for lack of a better word, not great. They were a little bit hard to navigate, and they were a little bit haphazard in the way the menus were laid out. I'm glad to say that with the new infotainment unit, this has gotten a lot better. In fact, I think it's probably one of the nicest ones to use at the moment across any brand. Not because it's particularly intuitive to use or anything, but when you are plugged into Apple Carplay or wireless Carplay or Android Auto, so your menu changes, right? But it doesn't replace the whole screen in terms of so basically your shortcut buttons to your menu, to your air conditioning, they're all still up here, which I think is really nice, because in a lot of cases when you want to navigate car main menus or setting menus while you're in CarPlay, you probably have to come out of Apple CarPlay, which is an additional step. But in the Tiguan, obviously I'm not plugged into CarPlay right now, but when CarPlay is sort of on the screen here and you want to go to your car menus, you can just click on the car button there, and then all your stuff is actually right here. So it's quite easy to navigate. You can also select your drive modes directly, and of course you can also select your main menus directly, so you don't actually have to. It does reduce one step of you clicking your menu button within CarPlay, selecting the car app, and then going into your buttons. So actually it's not even one step, it's probably like 2 steps difference. So that's really good. I hope Volkswagen continue with this trend, and I actually hope that a lot of other automakers follow in this footstep as well, to create the shortcut buttons, to make them visible even when CarPlay is operational. Aside from that, everything else in the Tiguan is as expected from a Volkswagen. It is well built, it is simple, it is functional, a little bit bland if you were to consider that everything looks black and grey, but that's always been the Volkswagen way. It's always been about ergonomics, it's always been about being well built and functional, and I think that's really the case with the Tiguan here as well. So beside this massive infotainment touchscreen unit, of course you've got your digital driver's display controlled by your multifunction steering wheel, and this is a pretty nice steering wheel. I think it feels premium, buttons are nice to press, no complaints here whatsoever. I think they look very modern as well. And then down in the center console, the drive selector has been replaced by a stock selector. So you select your drive modes through here, your drive, reverse, sports, whatsoever. And then your actual driving modes, your eco, comfort, sport, is all in the infotainment unit itself. And then over in the center console, you've got multiple, so you've got a storage ledge here, which you can put stuff on, and then underneath there's like USB ports where you can slot your phone in as well. And then down in the middle here, you've got this selector, this volume button, which when you press it, it also doubles up as a drive mode selector in terms of the Eco, Comfort, Sport. I don't really feel like this is necessary. Feels like a bit of a waste of switch gear, if I'm being honest, because it only has 2 functions. It would be cool if they had more functions, but it is pretty cool to look at. There is this sort of like a LED screen display in the center of the button, so it does look quite techy, quite high tech, which is not bad. Cup holders here with a removable insert if you prefer large, like a larger unobstructed storage area. but I'm a big fan of cup holders because I drink coffee in the car. And then of course you've got a center console here as well, center cubby here as well. Now the car does come with some nice features. I personally don't care too much for them, but it does have a full length. It's a two-piece full length sort of like it's a proper sunroof. So now what I'm doing now is I'm pulling back the blinds, but you can pop the sunroof open as well. It's a pretty big sunroof, but I'm not gonna leave it open for too long because I'm parked under a tree. I don't want any leaves falling in or anything. So they're all very easily controllable through these two slide bars. Yeah, personally I'm not a fan of sunroofs and panoramic roofs because my wife always says I'm a bit of a vampire because I like to stay in the dark. I'm not a huge fan of sunlight, which is ironic because I play so much golf. But yes, that's all for the front. Let's jump into the back seat. Check out what it's like to travel in the back seat of the Tiguan. Let's go. Alright, so now I'm jumping into the back seat and pretty comfortable actually. Huge amounts of leg room. This is driver's seat. This is my regular driving position. I'm 175 meters tall and this is the amount of leg room that I have and the amount of headroom that I have. One thing that I want to kind of highlight straight off the bat is how nice the recline position is in the rear seat. So plenty of times we find rear seats in cars today that are a little bit too elevated, a little bit too upright. They're just a little bit weird to sit in. But in the Tiguan, this is absolutely perfect. It's spot on. It's got a very, very nice recline position that makes you feel like you're still very comfortably cocooned in the car. I absolutely hate it when I have those seats that are elevated and you look so, and you sort of feel like you're overlooking the front. It's kind of scary. It makes you feel like the car's going faster than it is. So I'm really, really glad that the Tiguan has got this spot on. And there's a really, really good amount of leg room as well. Of course, there is a small center hump. I'm not sure why though, because the Tiguan is front wheel drive, but it's not too large like you get in most rear wheel drive cars. So having a third passenger in the middle is probably going to be acceptable. It's not going to be great, but it's acceptable. And more importantly, with the amount of leg room that you have, fitting a rearward child seat should not present too many problems for you as well. So yeah, perfectly functional for a family. I am actually super impressed with the amount of headroom that I have because we've got a full length panoramic roof up here along with sunroof mechanisms as well, and yet the amount of headroom that I have is spectacular. I think it's great. And I'm a person that enjoys having a lot of headspace. I don't like being in cars that make me feel like very cramped, a little bit claustrophobic if you will. So this is a really, really nice space to be in. And for those of you who are sharp-eyed enough, you'll see a little bit of you'll see an iguana motif here on the glass, and on the other side there's also a tiger motif, and this is of course paying homage to the name of the car, the Tiguan, which is a combination of the words tiger and iguana. For those of you who didn't know, I actually didn't know this until I attended a launch of the Tiguan itself, and then I realized that it was actually a combination of the words tiger and iguana. But enough about those stories. Let's jump back into the driver's seat, take the car for a drive, and see how it feels. Let's go. Alright guys, so jumping back into the driver's seat of the Volkswagen Tiguan, and we are gonna go take the car for a drive and see how it feels on the roads. But before we do all that, just you know, as usual, just to share a bit of some of the specifications about the car. So what's interesting to know about the Tiguan is that it is actually Cat A. So 129 brake horsepower, or it's capped at 129 brake horsepower. I think the 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder is definitely more capable of more than 129 brake horsepower, but this has been kept for Category A COE within Singapore, which I think is a very wise choice. You know, we don't need all that much power here in Singapore, but definitely if you compare this to older generations of Tiguans, you know, for those of you who might be used to the 2-litre variants, this is definitely a more tuned down version. 129 brake horsepower, 220 Newton meters of torque, and this is good for 0 to 100 in about 10.6 seconds. So on paper, not a particularly quick car. And this isn't a tiny vehicle as well. You know, it's not a small car by any means. So I think the real question is whether or not 129 brake horsepower is adequate for a car of this size. Let's take the car for a drive and see how it does. No more gear selector or drive selectors down on the center console. It has been changed to a stock selector up here, which I think is not bad. You know, it helps to declutter the stuff a little bit. So here we go. Waiting for some pedestrians to cross the road. Okay, so I've had this car for about 3 days, or I've been using it for the last three days or so. And one of the first things that I realized about the car is that it's got very, very nice road feel. So with a lot of modern cars today, I think the tendency is to make the car feel very light, you know, with efficiency considerations and all that. And obviously I think those are the same considerations that Volkswagen have had, but somehow they have retained a nice amount of road feel for the Tiguan. And I think it's important for a car this size, because I think with a car, you know, like the Tiguan, an SUV, family sized, you are going to be taking some longer road trips in this sort of car. And the last thing you want with a car like that on a road trip is for the car to feel floaty and overly light. So I'm very, very glad to say that the car actually feels very hefty, properly continental in the way it interacts with the road. And I think one of the main attributes that have kind of or one of the features that they have kind of attributed to this as well, is that Volkswagen have resisted the urge to make the steering overly light. So there is kind of a there is a nice weight to the steering when you're just moving around town, up on higher speeds as well. You don't feel like every little twitch of the wheel is going to shift the car. So I think there is a certain sense of assurance there as well. And I think that is probably the key thing that I enjoy from the Tiguan. Glad to announce as well, or glad to say, not announce, it's not my announcement to make, but glad to say that around town, I feel like the transmission and the power of the car is actually more than adequate. So, or maybe let me phrase that a little bit better. I think the 7-speed transmission, the dual clutch, is perfect for Singapore's road environment, and it does really help to bring out a lot of the low-end power that the car has. So despite having just a 1.5 litre turbocharged engine for a car this size and just 129 brake horsepower, you don't really feel like the car is underpowered when you're just driving around town, when you're just driving along the city roads, so to speak. One thing I must say though is that the car isn't particularly refined in a sense. So if I were to be really nitpicky about the way the car drives, the transmission does feel a tiny bit jerky in a certain setting. So downshifts and upshifts are very decided, they're very sure, they're very quick, but they do so with a tiny bit of a jerk as well. Not that it's a real problem, but it's definitely not as refined as some of the other transmissions that you will find on the market. But if you're not really particular about all those things, I think this is a great feeling car. I'm actually pretty impressed with the way the car drives, and I think it's also refreshing for reviewers like us, because we are so used to, you know, like honestly, this feels more hefty than say the new G65 series. Like if I'm being perfectly honest, When I drove the 5 Series, you know, it was clear that it was a much lighter feeling car than what we are normally used to, and I think that's just the way it is, you know, going forward. The E-Class as well, actually, and this actually feels more solid and more tanky than those cars are to drive. So I think that's a real selling point for the car, for those of you who are, you know, who are still big fans of that heavy, tanky car feel. So now, moving off the line, if you really step on it, you know, the car moves off with no problem at all. I wouldn't say it's sluggish in any way. I think there is a good sense of purpose with the way the car moves off, no complaints whatsoever. And as I'm heading to the highway, now I'm sort of like entering an expressway of sorts. Here's the other nice thing I've discovered about the car. So this new Tiguan 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder is also equipped with mild hybrid technology. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are a little bit skeptical about mild hybrid technology and how much it really helps, but when you are cruising on the highway in the Tiguan, actually not just the Tiguan as well, a lot of the Volkswagen range, the coast mode or coasting mode actually does shut off some cylinders in the car, and the car does drop to so basically I could be driving at 100 kilometers per hour and I take my foot off the gas and the RPM drops to below 1000, like maybe like 900 plus, which is pretty damn amazing if you think about it. Oh no, I'm running into traffic again in the morning. Oh, that's a little bit sad. Okay, it's a little bit unexpected. But anyway, very comfortable cruising car. So 120 kilometers per hour in this car feels like nothing. The car still feels like really comfortable, really planted. And for an SUV, I must say, I do get very minimal wind roar from the large side view mirrors, which I think is very typical of most SUVs. Don't really get that with the Tiguan. And I think tire roar from the wheel hubs are also above average when it comes to, like, above average meaning is quieter than most SUVs that I've driven, because typically with SUVs, wheel hubs are kind of big and they do amplify a lot of the tire noise into the cabin. With the Tiguan, you don't really get that. It's actually, I would say, this aspect of the car, road noise, wind noise, the Tiguan actually is above average and does better than a lot of its segment mates in that regard. So all in all, I'm actually really happy with the way the Tiguan performs. And I mean, it shouldn't really come as a surprise as well, because I mean, the Tiguan has been hugely popular for Volkswagen for a huge number of years. And although I think there isn't really like a huge standout feature of the car, you know, it's not the most powerful, it's not the most luxurious, it's not the most comfortable, but they have managed to blend a lot of these things into one very usable package that's good for day-to-day driving. And when you talk about small size 4-cylinder turbocharged engines, I think Volkswagen like is kind of like the master of it, the pioneer of it. I could be wrong, but when I think back to the time of my own Volkswagen Golf MK6, and already back then, you know, the 1.4 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder was amazing to drive. You know, it wasn't particularly powerful, but if you really wanted to step on it and you really wanted the car to move, it was always happy to push past the rest and get you going without any sort of complaint. It sounds like an engine that's eager to move, and I think that's really the same case here as well. So when you combine this with a much more dressed up interior package, and when I say dressed up interior package, mostly I'm referring to this massive 15-inch touchscreen that's larger than my MacBook. I think the whole package does come together quite nicely, and I think at quite a competitive price as well. You know, obviously given current COE prices, you know, the Tiguan being priced at, you know, just above $200,000, you know, it's not a cheap car to buy. It's definitely something that you have to kind of put some thought into. But I think if you think about what else you can get in this price point, the Tiguan does stand out as quite a value for money option, because you still get 4 cylinders, you know, although it's Cat A. You know, Volkswagen have resisted the urge to make the car 3-cylinder. So you do get a lot of refinement up on the highways as well, because cruising speeds, the car does feel a lot more comfortable, a lot more at ease. And then you couple that with the fact that the mild hybrid tech does help to you know, like to just keep the car rolling. You know, when the car is in coast mode, it almost feels like the car doesn't want to slow down. And a few times as I'm approaching sort of speed cameras, and I do need to slow down like a little bit, you know, and I take my foot off the gas, which is normally adequate, I realize that the car doesn't really slow down as well, because the car is still kind of coasting. So I do have to take the effort to kind of put on the brakes a little bit, let the car slow down. But yeah, those are my general sentiments about the Tiguan. I think it's perfectly capable for driving in Singapore as well as up in Malaysia. I think you'll be very happy with this when you're driving up longer trips to Malaysia. So if you're the sort of family that does frequent road trips up to Malaysia, I think this is a good one to consider. So that's that for my review. If you have any other questions about the Tiguan, things that I've missed out on, you know, feel free to put those questions in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer them when we do have some time to check out the comments. But if not, as usual, if you're a driver in Singapore, before we go, if you're a driver in Singapore and you're thinking about renewing your car insurance or getting the best possible insurance quote for your insurance renewal, or selling your used car for the best price possible, check out the link in the description box below, because we've got some really good deals for you there. They're free to inquire, so please check them out. We'll be able to help you out right there. And you know, as usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.